Hey guys, this is Spark Plus Ultra here, and this is What If Deku Had Blue Mary Abilities. Are you ready? And thank you for voting on which King of Fighter characters you want. I hope you like this video and hope you subscribe. In a world where 80% of the population has a superpower that is called a quirk, and 20% are quirkless, there are those that fight in the light that call themselves heroes, and those that fight and do dastardly things called villains. Very few could say on disaster, but also repent and give more joy in their lives. We're going into my life, Sumi Midori, but you can call me Blue Mary if you want. And I was born in the United States, where I was born to a very security agent family every generation, and my dad was a agency for the states. My dad was a agent, and my nephew was a police, and I met a boy that was about my age. We had fun time and we had a relationship, but then one thing happened. Sui then says this: when my dad and him gone off, I was worried with no reason, but I didn't expect something to happen. And a report came in that my dad died from a terrorist attack. And when I looked at the news, I saw my boyfriend to be dead as well. Became depressed. I didn't even smile all May months or years. I was just so sad. I couldn't even say how to say it. But when I saw one certain person on Zumi, saw a familiar person, a person that was lifting a huge wreckage and saving other people, and he says his trademark: "Don't worry, because I am here." And Sumi then sees All Might and then smiles. And when she slowly got over her depression, she then got a dog that is named Antonio, or Anton for you guys. And she became more and more lively, bringing back her smile over about pretty much 7 years. And Sumi then goes to work as a private eye, or private investigator, who was transported to Japan under investigation on a very, very known villain that is said in lore in the past. Sumi was in her usual school dress code in Japan, and she was very liked among the students, even if she didn't even have a quirk. And Sumi was going with her pet, taking him on some walks, and when she was taking a little shortcut, she was walking her dog to the shortcut while giving him some puppy love. Aww. And until a certain villain comes and interrupts and says, "That's a nice boy you have there." Getting out a surprise attack, the sludge villain says, "Let me have your body, kid." And Sumi then dodged, and Antonio then dodged with her. And Sumi says, "Anton, can you sit there, please?" And Anton sits and says, "Good boy." And Sumi then stretches her arm and says, "Okay, are you ready?" The sludge villain was confused on what she meant by that, but the sludge villain says, "I'm alright, right?" And when he says that, Sumi then rushes to him and says, "Okay," and uses her taser. And the sludge villain says, and knocking him out. And Sumi sighs and says, "You really need to stop overestimating a person. These villains. Maybe a girl. I'm no weakling. I had this to keep people from attacking or take them down. And Sumi then looks. Ah, so you're the infamous sludge villain that was going around. I heard All Might was looking for you. And just in time, All Might comes down and says, "Don't worry, because I am here!" And Sumi then smiles and sees All Might in the flesh and blood. And Sumi says, "All Might, it's so glad to meet you." And All Might says, "Are you a fan, young civilian?" And Sumi says, "Well, I'm technically a private eye, but I'm also a civilian, so yes." And All Might says, "A private eye at a young age. You took down that sludge villain with ease." And Sumi says, "Well, I had to subdue him, so I had to use a little simple trick by using his chemicals on himself. I highly doubt bludgeoning or piercing or slashing would work, so I used a simple trick, using a taser." And All Might says, "Usually I would knock him out with my air pressure, but you used a very good idea." And Sumi then says, "Thanks. Now we gotta get him to the police station. Anton, let's go." And Anton goes and comes in with Sumi and All Might, walking the sludge villain to the police station in a cola bottle. And All Might says, "That's a good looking dog you have." And Sumi says, "Thanks." And All Might says, "So his name is Anton?" And Sumi says, "No, it's just his nickname. His real name is Antonio." And All Might says, "Why, that's a lovely name for a handsome dog like him." And Sumi says, "Thank you." And Sumi then walks and talks with All Might. And All Might says, "So you're quirkless. That's impressive on how you took down that sludge villain." And Sumi says, "I trained on a certain martial art with my boyfriend." And All Might was curious on why she hesitated a bit. And All Might said, "Are you alright? You kind of hesitated on that one word, boyfriend." And Sumi says, "Well, he passed away just the same time as my father." And All Might says, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that." And Sumi says, "No problem. You can't change the past. What happens?" And All Might says, that is true." And All Might was honestly having a fun talk with Sumi, having a great personality and having a great time with her. But All Might has to go soon. And All Might says, "Sorry, I gotta go. You can take the sludge villain to the police station." And Sumi says, "Okay." And All Might jumps and goes building to building, and then sees his son. Damn. Turning back to his normal form. And All Might thinks to himself, she is a lively young girl, also pretty creative on her tactics. Maybe she's the one. And when he was thinking about that, Sumi took the sludge villain to the police department and says, "There you go. Here's the wanted criminal." And the police department was glad that Sumi took down the sludge villain. And then one of the police chief and the detective asked Sumi a favor. And Sumi says, "Sure, why not? What do you have in mind?" And then Masa said, "We want you to go and check on UA." And Sumi then questions, why? Isn't there any more lead on it? I'm just wondering. And Masa says, "Yeah, there's a theory or a very heavy question that there's a UA traitor. And Zumi was surprised on hearing that, and sighs and says, what? Who is this UA traitor? And Namasa says, we don't know, but I think we need to have someone inside. Take down. We need somebody at the age to not be conspicuous. And Sumi says, so you want me at age 14 to go to UA? Okay, that'll work with me. And Namasa says, you're such easy to cooperate with, Sumi. And Sumi says, hey, it's going to be a job. Any job can work, and I can take down the perpetrator on who's gonna feed on the information to villains. And then the detective says, yes, now we gotta get with a explaining on how you're going to be going into UA. Couldn't I basically do the test on every normal exam that they have? And the detective says yes, if you're wanting to be figured out, but I think there's another test for you. And Sumi says, okay, I'll work with it. And next day, Sumi gets into training and works on her martial art. And Antonio then holds her coat and they play while training. And over 3 months have gone by. And Sumi stretches her arms and says, whew, lots of good workout. I'll probably make it to getting through those tests easily. And when she was going back home, taking the dog for a walk, she then feels a eerie presence, and Sumi then feels a weird, familiar vibe, but she can't really explain it. And then Sumi then checks back and sees a scrawny old man that was just walking to the same place as her. And Sumi then sighs and says, nothing too conspicuous, but maybe I could. Then Sumi goes to a other direction, an unexpected direction, and the man with skinny, like scarecrow body then walks the different path. And Sumi then sighs and says, it wasn't a stalker or anything. Good. Sumi goes in her house and gives her dog some well-needed food and a treat out of that. And Sumi gets into her UA uniform. Looks good. Usually I'm not too intrigued on these, but I like how they fit. So, there. And when she goes to sleep, next day, Sumi walks to UA and goes to the training on the preliminary exam. And Sumi and go into running position. And when Sumi was looking at all the students from different places, she sees a red and white haired boy. And Sumi then looks at him. He looks so familiar. Do I recognize him? And when she thinks about that, she also hears a boy that is shouting at the top of his lungs, so great to meet you! And hitting his head on the ground and bowing it. And Sumi then sees the boy. How are you doing? Sumi chuckles a bit and looks at him. And the boy says, it's great to meet you. My name is Inasa Yoroichi. It's great to meet you. And Sumi then looks at him and laughs a bit. Says, my name is Sumi Midoriya. You can call me Blue Mary if you want. And Inasa says, oh, it's very nice to meet you, Blue Mary. And Sumi says, I hope you get ready, because I'm not gonna hold back on the training exam. And Inasa says, exactly the same as I was saying. And Sumi and Inasa shake hands and get ready to run. And President Mike then says, "Okay, you guys, it's time to get ready, get set." And Zumi says this. When President Mike says this, "Are you ready?" And Anasa says, "Yes, I am!" And President Mike says, "Go!" And Zumi runs at her normal speed, Anasa taking second, and that boy taking first. And Zumi says, "Figured I couldn't match a quirk user's speed while on foot." And when running at quite a high speed, Zumi sees Anasa taking first place, and Shoto taking second, and Zumi takes third. And Zumi then says, "Whew, that was a good sweat," and going to look for Anasa. And then Anasa was gonna say, "That was a good race," to get Kid, but the Kid then didn't want his condolence on that, or gratitude. And Zumi says, "Anasa, that was a good race. I'm not surprised that you beat me." And Anasa says, "Oh, yeah, that's really good to race with you." And Zumi says, "Huh? What's with your move?" And Anasa says, "Huh? What about my move?" And Zumi then says this. "It shifted for a second. What's the matter? Did the boy was angry at you or something?" And Anasa says, "No, it's nothing." And Zumi then looks at him and says, "Hey, don't get yourself down. Relax. I'm not going to push it on you. Whatever you want to do, it's your choice." Waving him back and walking to deal with the trainings. And Anasa then gets angry at Shoto, but he doesn't go to UA. Even though Zumi gave him a little good pep talk in explaining, Anasa didn't go to UA. And Zumi gets to Class 1A. And Zumi then stretches on the way back home and says, "Whew, that was so fun. I have trained like that with my boyfriend." But when she says that, while walking home, she sees that old scrawny dude. And Zumi says, "Oh, you're the man that was at the same walk, weren't you? Who are you?" Zumi gets a little serious on looking at him. She doesn't want to hurt him. She wants answers a bit. And the man says, "Oh, Zumi, you didn't know? Ah, right. Anasa didn't told you about me." And Zumi says, "Who are you? How do you know the detective?" And then Toshi then puffs and says, "It's me, All Might." And Zumi then gets surprised on seeing All Might in being that skinny guy. But Zumi then thinks, why? I'm just so confused. And All Might says, "I'll explain it to you." And becoming his skinny form. And Zumi then goes and talks with All Might. And All Might explains how his quirk works and what One for All is, and how it was passed down. And Zumi then says, "Oh, that's interesting. I never thought of One for All as a multiple quirk storage like that. But it makes so sense when you explain it." And All Might says, "I noticed how you fought and how you also dealt with things like this. And you never shown to be on a downside of it." And Zumi says, "Well, I get a little angry on a few occasions, but that doesn't make me a bad person. I just was annoyed that things get complicated on certain situations." And All Might says, "I agree on that." And Zumi then says, "So, what do you want me? And why did you explain all that to me?" And All Might says, "I have chosen you as One for All user." And Zumi was surprised to hear that. And Zumi says, "Wait, what? You're kidding." And All Might says, "I'm not kidding. You have determination and no hesitation to help others." And Zumi says, Thanks. But shouldn't I go talk to your former psychic? And All Might says, no, it's fine. And Zumi was a little weirded on that saying, but she then says, okay. But how does One for All get transferred to me? By doing this. And plucking a hair and All Might showing it to her. And Zumi was a bit off-putted, but then understands what he means. Oh, you mean I got to eat it or pass it to you by blood or touch, right? And All Might says, exactly. So, and Zumi then eats the hair and says, never put that in my bucket list, but okay. And All Might says, be careful on using One for All, okay? We'll do a little training on it. And Zumi says, okay. And Zumi again goes to sleep and says this. I never expected this, but, well, it is a crazy world sometimes. And that's where I'm ending this video. I hope you like this video.